The healthcare system wants you trapped in a cycle of dependency on their drugs, making them rich while you suffer from chronic diseases that they say cannot be cured. But what if there was a way out? Dr. Sebi found cures to multiple diseases, even HIV and AIDS, by using the power of Mother Nature. But when word got out about his miracles, he was taken into custody and ultimately died in prison. His name was even trademarked shortly after his death, leaving us to wonder what really happened to him. Was he killed for having the cure to diseases? Join us as we do a deep dive into the life and work of Dr. Sebi, an herbalist who dared to challenge the system and paid the ultimate price for it.
Dr. Sebi, pathologist, herbalist, biochemist, and naturalist.
He offered cures for incurable diseases.
Ability of having cures for sickle cell blindness, AIDS, lupus, diabetes.
His clients included Michael Jackson, Lisa Left Eye Lopez, John Travolta, and Eddie Murphy.
Yet the man known as Dr. Sebi claims to have found the cure for several life-threatening diseases, including AIDS. Too good to be true? Well, you be the judge.
Dr. Sebi had brought so many levels of healing to our community. He, like many other could have for surely been a target of powers that be.
Alfredo Bowman, more commonly known as Dr. Sebi, was born on the 26th of November, 1933, in Elanga, Honduras. He first learned the herbal healing and related traditional practices from his grandmother. His grandfather was originally from Haiti. He generally identified himself as an African in Honduras, not as an Afro-Honduran. Even though his grandmother taught him about the herbal remedies, Dr. Sebi didn't take an interest in this at the time. Dr. Sebi worked on a cargo ship as a machinist during the earlier years of his life. While on the cargo ship, he had the opportunity to travel to other countries. During his time as a machinist, Dr. Sebi lived an unhealthy life. He consumed too much food, and this led to obesity. He later also developed other health problems, including impotency, diabetes, and asthma. At the age of 35, Dr. Sebi had suffered from visual impairment, along with the other conditions that he had developed. When Dr. Sebi realized that his life was in danger due to these illnesses, he initially decided to head to the United States. It was here where he decided to take advantage of Western medicine as a way of treating his condition. While he did receive access to medication at this time, the drugs that were provided to him simply did not help at this point. The symptoms he had experienced continued to worsen. He was told that his conditions could not be cured. At that point, Dr. Sebi decided that he had to look for other ways in which he could heal himself. This is where Dr. Sebi met a man coincidentally also named Alfredo while he was traveling on the cargo ships. This Alfredo Cortez specialized in herbal medicines and was supposedly well equipped to deal with diseases. He decided to pay Alfredo Cortez a visit, who resided in Mexico at the time. Fortunately, due to the traveling element of his work, he was able to head over to Mexico. It is here that Dr. Sebi's life took a turn for the better. After hearing that he was dying from the herbalist in Mexico, the treatment started with a fast, which lasted for 90 days. Fasting is a therapeutic technique that has been used for thousands of years. In fact, some experts suggest that it dates back as early as the 5th century BCE. Hippocrates, a famous Greek physician, was one of the first to describe abstinence from liquids and foods as a treatment for certain diseases. Modern research shows that a fasting diet that lasts about 12 weeks can help to reduce cholesterol by as much as 12%, body weight by 7%, and even help to lower triglyceride levels by 14 to 42%. To his surprise, during this fast, Dr. Sebi was able to start feeling better, and the conditions he had started to disappear. Instead of telling Alfredo that he cannot be cured, the Mexican herbalist rather attempts to help. The herbalist continuously provided Dr. Sebi with herbal mixtures during the fasting period, as well as juice on certain occasions. Water formed an important part of his life during these 90 days. This is where Alfredo's journey to becoming Dr. Sebi started. He experienced the wonders of natural remedies and was able to cure himself of diseases otherwise thought of as incurable. He became more interested in using natural cures and started to experiment on himself at this point. He would create natural compounds and mixtures, then consume it to see how it affected him. Later on, Dr. Sebi decided to start helping other people with his natural remedies. This is when Dr. Sebi's name started to get out there. He started his first healing practice soon after he was cured by Alfredo Cortez in Mexico. The first practice was created in Honduras, his home village. The initial treatment that Dr. Sebi developed was known as African bioelectric cell food therapy. Even though self-taught, this therapeutic technique quickly gained traction, and he later even promoted the herbal products he created to people in the United States. Dr. Sebi later went to the United States, where he continued his journey to use nature as a healing tool for people. Speaking of journeys, we're on the road to 100K subscribers. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel with post notifications on so you can join us on this movement. We aren't just telling stories, we're changing lives and waking the culture up. For those looking to learn more about our true history and becoming the best version of yourself, click the link in our description below to grab our new ebook called The Root. Each purchase gets reinvested back into the channel to help bring you more free, high-quality documentaries. Thank you for the support. Now let's get back to the story of Dr. Sebi. Unfortunately, pharmaceutical companies and even the FDA started to take note of Dr. Sebi. The FDA filed an official lawsuit against Dr. Sebi in 1988 after he promoted his cures for chronic diseases that were not considered curable. The FDA claimed that Dr. Sebi promoted false advertising. They also claimed that Dr. Sebi did not have any licenses or a degree to back the work he did. The case went to court, where the judge then requested Dr. Sebi provide evidence for the claims he made on these advertisements. The judge asked Dr. Sebi to offer one witness who can form evidence for each disease he claims to be able to cure. When Dr. Sebi arrived, he brought along with him 77 witnesses, all of whom were cured by the herbal compounds and mixtures that Alfredo used to treat these individuals. The case was thrown out, but companies continued to attack Dr. Sebi, often even sending in people who work undercover, acting like patients in need of healing from his practice. On the 28th of May, 2016, the police arrested Dr. Sebi at an airport. He was charged with money laundering due to the amount of money he carried with him. By this point, his business was a huge success, and he even helped to cure celebrities. Unfortunately, friends and family who reached out to the business Dr. Sebi created was unable to get a hold of anyone, and that meant they couldn't get access to the documentation required to prove Dr. Sebi's innocence. There was no court date set for Dr. Sebi, and no bail was granted to him, which was not normal considering the allegations against him. Later that year, in August, it was announced that Dr. Sebi died while he was in prison. The official statements from the authorities mentioned that the reasons for his death was pneumonia, but Dr. Sebi told his daughter previously that the prison was trying to poison him through the food that they were serving. Pneumonia outbreaks are relatively common in prisons, with some cases affecting as much as 5% of the inmates, giving reason to why pneumonia would be used as a possible excuse regarding Dr. Sebi's death. Many people would argue that the death of Dr. Sebi was no accident. He was in perfect health while in prison, even at the age of 82. This is where things get interesting, as just a short while after Dr. Sebi's death, his name was trademarked by the company that he had created. At this time, it was clear that Dr. Sebi's legacy was stolen by people he trusted and worked with at his healing practice. It was also discovered that the formula of the healing products Dr. Sebi created was altered. This was confirmed by both his one daughter and one of his wives. The people who used his formulas also noted sudden reactions to the supplements, which did not happen before. This is just one example of how multi-billion-dollar industries take action to hide truths that can be costly to them. The pharmaceutical industry is huge and heavily relies on sick people who constantly require treatment with conventional medication. When people know about Dr. Sebi's methods and can gain easy access to them, they would turn to these natural remedies instead of continuously moving back to the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry to help with the management of an incurable disease. Although Dr. Sebi is no longer with us, there are some extremely important lessons we can learn from him. Dr. Sebi was dying at the age of 35 with obesity and several other health problems, yet his health turned around completely. This is the first lesson we should learn from Dr. Sebi. Even if your health is in bad shape, it's not too late to make positive changes. Take your health seriously and do the necessary steps to better yourself. He also taught us that no matter who we are or where you're from, there's always a way to make a success out of yourself. Dr. Sebi went from working on a ship to running his own business and creating his own natural products. Among the many lessons that we can learn from him, we also need to remember how natural remedies were able to provide Dr. Sebi with restorative effects, and that was after pharmaceuticals failed to do anything for him. What's the lesson here? We shouldn't forget that Mother Nature has many ways to help our bodies heal, from natural plants to extracts that take away the pain, lower inflammation, and rejuvenate the body. He taught us that filling our bodies with pharmaceutical drugs only causes us to expose ourselves to chemicals that can be harmful in the long run. When there's a natural remedy, it's a good idea to turn to it. Apart from these lessons, there is another thing that we should remember. After being possibly poisoned in prison, What happened shortly after? The people who worked for Dr. Sebi, or the government that trademarked his name, took over his business and even adjusted the formula of the natural products that Dr. Sebi created. This shows that once you become successful and challenge the system, you have to watch everyone around you. You never know who's plotting on your downfall. Now, with Dr. Sebi's legacy being altered, where do we turn to when we need natural healing? Here's a couple options. Dr. Sebi was a huge fan of sea moss. He discovered sea moss, also known as Irish moss, while researching the plants of the Caribbean islands. He believed that sea moss had powerful healing properties and was effective in treating a range of health issues, including respiratory problems, thyroid issues, and digestive disorders. Sea moss is a type of algae that is high in nutrients, such as vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. It is also believed to have anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties, making it a popular ingredient in natural remedies and supplements. Sea moss is often consumed in the form of a gel or added to smoothies and other recipes for its potential health benefits. Ancient times, these discoveries were made, and we continue to rely on them today. One of the biggest differences is that we now have access to technology and medical equipment that makes it easier to study the actual effects of these natural remedies. Willow bark, for example, is an ancient remedy for pain and inflammation. In old times, people used to chew on the bark. Scientists have now discovered that willow bark contains psilocin, which has properties similar to that of aspirin. Even though just 24% of psilocin is in a willow bark extract, studies still show it may work more effectively than aspirin and produce fewer adverse effects. We must carry on Dr. Sebi's legacy and start to heal ourselves. We don't need them, they need us. But we are just scratching the surface on all this information. If you'd like to learn something else schools never taught you, click the video on the screen. It's a documentary that will change your perspective on life.